Welcome to the Alchemy of Success podcast with Dr. Michael Leslie, PhD, designed to inspire, educate, and empower listeners to embrace a life of abundance in all areas: mind, body, spirit, relationships, and finances. Let's get started.
Hi, I'm Michael Leslie, and welcome to our second podcast in this series on the alchemy of success and how to get what you really want out of life. And tonight I have a special guest, Melissa Cauley. And Melissa Cauley is a dynamic entrepreneur with over 30 years of experience spanning sales, real estate, oil and gas permitting, network marketing, business coaching, and alternative healing. Her career has been a testament to adaptability and reinvention, proving that success is not just about expertise, but also about intuition, resilience, and a willingness to evolve. Melissa's journey has been shaped by real world experience, personal challenges, and deep transformational work, allowing her to bridge the gap between business strategy and personal empowerment. Her extensive background in sales and business development laid the foundation for her success across multiple industries, from closing high stakes real estate deals to navigating the regulatory complexities of oil and gas. Melissa has consistently demonstrated strategic insight and leadership. In network marketing and business coaching, she became a mentor and catalyst for others' success, helping individuals develop sales strategies, build confidence, and create sustainable business models. Through firsthand experience, she learned that the true success is not just financial. It requires alignment, personal mastery, and a deep understanding of human connection. Beyond traditional business, Melissa has immersed herself in alternative healing, plant medicine integration, and personal transformation. She understands that many high achievers struggle with unresolved trauma, limiting beliefs, and emotional barriers, and she has dedicated herself to guiding others through deep healing and self discovery. Her work merges experiential knowledge with intuitive wisdom, helping individuals and entrepreneurs break through limitations and step into their fullest potential. Melissa's latest venture, Scorpion Alchemia, is the culmination of her life's work, a movement focused on business strategy, personal transformation, and holistic empowerment. Through consulting, coaching, and integration work, she helps others navigate profound change, align with their purpose, and achieve success on their own terms. Whether in business, leadership, or healing, Melissa continues to inspire by blending strategy with intuition, structure with evolution, and business acumen with deep personal wisdom.
Amazing, Dr. Michael. Thank you for having me.
Great. So, the part that we're wanting to really talk about tonight is what it means to transform oneself. What is the essence of transformation, and why is that important, and how can we apply it in our individual lives?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? What does it mean to transform oneself? So I think that there's been a lot that's gone on in the world in the way of business development, personal development, everything from coaching to therapy to counseling to whatever. And that transformation sometimes, because of the subconscious programs of which these other programs are created, tend not to go inside ourselves. So that personal transformation is more of a journey within to teach us how to feel those emotions potentially that have been suppressed from a very young age.
Well, Vanessa, we have a little technical issue right now. Some of our listeners are saying they have no sound, so I'm
Okay.
going to help we can get that remedy, Jason, if it's something that needs to be addressed on your side. Um, but we're going to continue speaking to each other while Jason addresses that. I wonder if you were talking to a layperson about this, Melissa. What would you say is transformation? If they ask you how's different from inspiration, or how's inspiration different from motivation? What is it that's in transformation that's not present in any of these other approaches to making our lives what we want them to be?
Yeah, so inspiration and motivation are all things that are found outside of ourselves. So transformation comes from within. So once, I'll let you. It sounds like you're going to say something. I think I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so once we begin to understand as a human being how we function and how we're supposed to feel everything, then we don't really need the inspiration or the motivation outside of ourselves.
Okay, got it. So it looks like transformation might really be the fundamental thing that each one of us wants to have if we're wanting to achieve our goals, or if we're wanting to feel better about ourselves, or if we want to get even a sense that we're on track. Am I correct so far?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, good. So you mentioned in your opening statement, you mentioned something about undiscovered trauma or unrealized trauma from experiences that we've had in our life that might stand in the way of us getting what we want. Could you speak more about that and what that trauma, what kinds of trauma you're speaking about, and how they might block us from our achievement?
Sure. So between the ages of 0 and 7, whatever happens in our life is typically what I would call crystallized in the human body. And from there is how we repeat patterns throughout our life. So as human beings, the cycles, the events, and the patterns from those experiences of the past that have never been felt. I hear a little bit of feedback there. Those experiences that have never been felt tend to ask to be expressed in behaviors that play out through our lives. So once we're able to hone in on the behavior of the situation and how we got to where we got to and why the things that happened the way that they happened, we're able to shed a little bit more light on how those traumatic experiences actually happened for us and shaped us into the human being that we are today, which calls an awareness to the patterns that are constantly being asked to either be interrupted or changed in our life.
Good. So let's get into it a little more deeply if we can, because I remember you and I did some work together in which I was able to discover some patterns that were dominating me, how I relate to people, for example, having had the experience of being held back or feeling that I was held back, and as you said, crystallized in me. And then instead of being able to say relate to in particular to give for an audience to give them some insight, seeing women as people who I should be afraid of or in the defensive, right, in my relationship with them because of some experience I had that was very negative, then it means that I'm always in a combat mode, in a defensive mode when I'm talking to someone of the opposite sex, right? So you're talking about those kinds of trauma that, stay in you and then sort of impel you to behave in a certain way. So maybe you can give me an example of how those traumas may play out in business, for example, how that might prevent someone who's maybe trying to close a deal or trying to get a promotion or trying to even communicate. Can you give us an example of how one of those traumas might play out in that kind of situation for that person?
Sure. So
And
there's a bunch of different routes that we can go there. But when it comes to business specifically, or any thought that's formed from the subconscious thought, right? So even in business, when we have this idea that this is the business that we want to launch, then there is a certain amount of, I'm not going to, it's basically programming that goes into the thought of the business itself. So how those play out then are from the actions or behaviors of the person who had the original thought, how they developed the original thought, and how they interact with people. Now, what does that mean? Well, it could mean a few different things, but basically it means that whomever that they are on the inside, and this is where growth really comes in and that transformation begins to happen, if they're open to receiving it a different way rather than thinking that they need to develop the business from the mind only, right? So if we're intuitively in tune with who we are, then we're open to receive those answers from the embedded trauma that exists within us, and the way that that's typically projected from us and how others can hear it in us is from the authenticity of our voice. So the resonance from the frequency of our voice, you can actually sense the different transformation levels that somebody goes through, for whatever it is that they're creating. So I can go deeper there as well. There's a lot
Yeah,
to it.
this is good. Well, let's follow. I mean, let's follow the thread. So I hear you saying that our how we actually, if we're talking about actual communication, me talking to you or me talking to someone I'm doing business with or that I want to do business with, there's something that shows up in the tonality, if you would, or the way I speak that unbeknownst to me is having an impact on how successful I'm going to be in that conversation. Am I good so far?
Absolutely. In sales and in everything. Yes.
Mhm. Okay, so I think it would be really behoove us to get at what is the methodology for getting to the trauma that causes us to behave or to speak in certain ways that are unproductive to us. So maybe I think if you could speak about trauma, shall we call it trauma release or trauma transformation? What are we doing here that has a person have be able to take the corrective measure, if you would, that's necessary? Can you speak about that? How does that work?
Yeah, sure. So the methodology is different, I'm going to say, for everyone, depending on where they are. And that's where, whether it be a group setting or an individual setting, I'm able to go in with the person and help them discover how they're emotionally formed, how the emotional intelligence is formed from a young age. So from there, we can not determine, but I can help guide them on a set path and helping them understand the emotions that they're composed of and how come they're composed of those emotions and when they shut off those emotions and at what age. So if I can hone in on when they became emotionally disconnected or whatever event happened for them to be less in tune with themselves, which would have, I don't know, rendered them a little bit more unconscious, right? Because I believe that we're born in a conscious state. So if they're a little bit more unconscious, what was the event and at what age and what emotions are they composed of that they inherited from the maternal side, that have played out in patterns throughout their life?
Hmm. And so once they've identified what those emotions were, what happens next?
So once they've identified what the emotions are, it's a step-by-step process, but it's a matter of feeling and then teaching them to allow the feeling to be felt. So with everything that comes in from the thinking mind, it's different. We don't have to go the mind plane and discuss all of that today, but everything that comes in from the mind, it's like, okay, well, there's the thought, and in this instant, what is asking to be felt?
Mhm.
We're
And
teaching the person how to feel.
yeah, very good. So you're good. So we find out what happened. We find out what was not expressed in terms of feeling. Then the next step is to actually feel the thing that has been blocked, if you would, that we have, that the person was not, or that in my case, whatever I wasn't able to express as a result of feeling that I was being maybe, I hate to use the word attacked, but maybe I felt very uncomfortable in some interaction with a woman, right? And I'm just putting this there because that's what's present for me in this conversation. And then because since I decided I didn't want to feel that anymore, it's blocked. That shows up in other ways in my communication. But let's return to this place. Okay, well, I've discovered that this is the feeling that I didn't want to feel. Now you're saying that I should feel that feeling And by the way, which would probably be very uncomfortable for me to feel, right? Since that's why I've been blocking it to begin with, right? So
Mhm.
how do you bring a person to feel what they don't really want to feel, even if it's for their evolution, if you would?
Well, it's the awareness, and then at that point, they get to choose. So if they choose to not feel, then basically they bypass the feeling, and any negative emotion gets stowed again. So negative emotions don't go away. Whatever is not felt and moved through, then we just continue to repeat the pattern. So the awareness of that interruption that you are not feeling right here, how do I teach you and how do we learn how to feel? It usually begins with the vulnerability that that's actually what they are experiencing, for them to express what they are experiencing at that point in their vulnerability, full vulnerability.
And I would imagine the person, this is actually quite fascinating to me. I'm imagining that if I'm going through this process of allowing myself to feel, I've decided to allow myself to feel because I want to have some transformation or something I'm desiring that's more important to me than blocking that feeling, right? So I'm willing to undertake this process so I can be released, if you would, or
Yes.
empowered so I can do whatever it is I'm trying to accomplish. So I'd have to have something at stake. Like, I really want this business to work and I don't really understand why it's not working, or I really want this relationship to work and I don't understand why it's not working. So I'm willing to find out what's in the way, what's blocking it. And you're saying it's an emotion that I've been unwilling to feel. So I've got that so far. So we're okay. I heard some noise in the background, so I stopped for a minute. Okay. So this feeling that I'm going to feel now that I didn't want to feel, I've accepted to feeling it. Most people, many people, I would say, are afraid of their feelings. They're afraid that if they allow themselves to feel what they're going to feel, or if they haven't felt, or if they block themselves from feeling, they're going to get hurt. That's why we're avoiding those things. So, what how do you persuade a person, besides the fact that them knowing that they have to feel it? I mean, they might still want to avoid it because it hurts. So how do you get people, or they, at least we think it's going to hurt to feel that feeling. So how do
Mhm.
you get me to accept feeling something that I think is going to be hurtful to me or very uncomfortable for me? What's your process for that?
Well, if we're uncomfortable, then that probably means that we should do it. But the process literally for that is to bring them to the awareness that which pain is greater, like what's at stake. So I mean, it literally is the commitment behind the decision to go forward and step into this work. And at that point, is it more painful to go back and repeat all the patterns that I've repeated my entire life? Or does it mean that I just need to feel for a second, even if this is painful? What if it opens me in a way that I've never been opened before? So
Yeah.
it
So
literally is being able to hold the space for the person to be able to move through that, through the emotions of that.
got it. Well, this just seems to be a good time for it to take a little break and maybe listen to a commercial and then come back to Melissa Cauley, who is talking to us about the importance of feeling our feelings as an access to our success in life, to transforming ourselves to getting what we really want out of life, having to feel things that we don't want to feel in order to get there, not just think them, but to actually feel them and maybe even discover things that we haven't been willing to feel, that are so stuffed down that we don't even know that we've disconnected from ourselves and from our ability to communicate with others. So we'll return to that in just a minute after this brief commercial.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Leslie. Many of us have dreams in our hearts that we have not been able to realize, but we really want to have that thing. So I created a course called The Alchemy of Success: How to Get What You Really Want Out of Life. It's a 21-day course in which you'll do three things. First, you'll get in touch again with that thing that really inspires you, the thing that you really want to have happen for you. Secondly, we'll get the obstacles out of the way so you can move expeditiously towards achieving it. And then finally, we create a solid plan, a roadmap that will get you from where you are now to the achievement of your dream. That's called The Alchemy of Success, How to Get What You Really Want Out of Life. The course is $299, but if you enroll this week, you can have it for $199, the 21-day course and the fulfillment of your heart's desire. I look forward to seeing you there. How do you do it? You just go to drmichaelleslie.com. You send me a note, say, I want to be in the course. I'll put you in the course and we'll start working together right away. I look forward to seeing you there.
Great. So we're back. So, it's, I feel like one of those obstacles that I, talk about removing in my course is probably one of the obstacles you're best at removing, which is the not being able to feel, right? Not being having access to the part of yourself that, well, here's a good question for you. So, what does feeling make available to you? I mean, so we spend so much time. Some people are all about their feelings, right? And some
Mhm.
people don't want to feel anything at all. That's the last thing they want to do is to feel something, especially if it's uncomfortable. So, what is it that feeling and allowing ourselves to feel gives us access to that otherwise is not available?
Mm, that's a great question. So, what feeling gives us access to is deep connection. That's in all relationships. Another thing feeling gives us access to is uh, when we begin to feel, those emotions are actually, we've made this declaration to the universe that we are going to magnetize ourselves. So, what happens with the quantum space, once we begin to feel that authenticity begins to come through with those deeper connections, we're able to connect to people in business, sales, whatever, on a different level, have a different level of relationship, and at the same time, we are magnetizing our attractor field.
This is great. So let me restate that again because I was so moved by it. So when we're authentic, people relate to us differently, and it opens up opportunities for us that we would not have if we weren't able to relate to those people or if they weren't able to relate to us. So it opens up a whole new world, right? Whole new world of possibilities, a whole new world of accomplishment, a whole new world of well, I like the word possibilities. Possibilities show up that weren't there before because we're relating in ways that we weren't relating before. That's a great takeaway from this conversation for me. I okay. Let's go ahead, Melissa.
I just was going to say the infinite possibilities. We begin to unlock or unzip that true blueprint of our soul, the innate wisdom that is within us that wants to come out. So, all of those things.
Wow. Now that we're just before we have a lot of questions from our guests. So just before we go there, I want to get a little more into this because it's just so rich. So now you're saying on top of that that we have these something that's already inside of us that's maybe I'm going to use a word that I shouldn't use. It's something that maybe even close to maybe supernatural, something that's really powerful that we haven't getting had access to, or and that also gets to come into the game, that gets to play. So it's not just like things that we are conscious of that we would be able to achieve or might be able to achieve or open up to, but also something that's already in us that gets to come out and be present with other people. Is that what I heard from you?
Yeah, absolutely. We get to step into who we truly are, our authentic self.
Now, this is something I love talking about. Who is it? Who are you really? I made that a subject of one of my books. Be who you really are. Right? Who is that person in you that really wants to be? I mean, it might not even be anything that you think you are at this point, but it's surely worth taking a look and trying to discover. So again, I'm on the edge of my chair here, listening to this conversation about the possibilities that derive from allowing ourselves to feel.
Mm.
Good. So let's take some questions or comments from our audience. Go ahead, Jason. Oh, someone's saying that was well said. Bypassing the emotions keeps you stuck. Good. We got that. Yeah. Yeah, it's something we can't move, right? If we aren't sharing who we authentically are. What else do we have here? The belief in pain being on the other side is not true. Once you let the pain go, there's only good, only God's love, and on the other side. Okay, so that I want you to interact with that a little bit too, if you would, Melissa. That there's also this fear, right? That whatever is going to be discovered down there is something horrific, if you would, right? So, and I guess that's what my question to you was. Well, I mean, if I didn't want to see it in the first place, why would I want to see it now, right? So,
Yeah,
what do
yeah.
you tell people? What do you tell people when they say, "Oh, this is too. This is just too much to take on. I don't really want to do this. I don't want to go any further than this. I'd rather stay with my half life that I'm having now than to deal with that life that I just, don't want to, that I hate."
Hmm. Yeah, that's where there is no shame. There is no guilt. There is no fear. Fear is an illusion, right? So really what is on the other side of it that will be seen, that our shadow will be seen because we were human and we were being who we were being during those times. I mean, what is the real fear? That we might not look the way that society thinks that it should have looked for what it was that we had done for whoever it was we were being. What is the fear? That's literally like, are we afraid to be seen as we are? Are we afraid to be held as we are?
Well, I think there's a superstition, and the superstition is that there's something wrong with us. I think it goes back to some interpretations that people make of the Bible, say that we're bad and we need to be I don't saved, and we need to be something along those lines. There's something wrong with us that needs to be fixed, right? And if
Yeah.
we don't, and I think that's what some I have the experience. I remember even earlier in my life, I was afraid of God. Like God's out to get me, right? Because I've done all these wrong things and I'm going to be punished, going to go to hell and the everlasting fire and burn forever. I mean, a lot of people have that in their background of the experience of that's what's waiting for them, and that's probably why they're afraid to take a look at who they
Mhm.
might be or who they are, right? Like who they are is not good, right? And that's why they don't want to go there. They don't want to feel that. um, so I don't know where I was going with that comment,
I've
but
got it. I've got it. I've got you here. So, where you're going, the abstract beliefs. Us as humans, we are programmed from the time that we're born when we come into this hologram, say. So as soon as we come in, we are born obviously with certain DNA that is in us, and the mind is basically programmed. So if we look at the abstract beliefs and we can discover why it is that we believe what we believe to begin with, which typically, as soon as we start breaking down and laying out those beliefs on the table, it's not a matter of, okay, you believe this and this is right or this is wrong. It's literally a matter of releasing and understanding that nobody's going to save us but ourselves at the end of the day. The only person that would ever be there for me when I was 6 years old, my grandfather told me, was God. And he was right. And at the same time, I cursed God a lot of the time because things weren't going how I thought they should be going. So, but that was up to me to dig myself out. God, the universe, whatever, doesn't want us to suffer. We remain in suffering for as long as we remain in suffering because it's a choice. It's a choice. But as soon as we begin to explore why it is that we believe what we believe, why we're programmed to believe what we believe, and how come we've believed what we've believed our whole life, there's a lot of light inside of those shadows as well.
very few people, in my experience, have are willing to take the time to actually study themselves. Where, like, what they can, why, how is it they came to believe what they believe about themselves? Not just about themselves, about the world, how the world works. Like how people have these fantasies, I would call them, about how do you make money. They have fantasies about how you what's the appropriate way to be in order to be successful. Like, there's all these success books. If you do this, and this, you'll get success, right? And these are, in some ways, fantasies, or at least stories, something people made up about the road to get from here to there. I remember, when people talk about, oh, in order, and this is just a concrete one that I love. In order to take, if you want to go on vacation in Thailand, then you need to have $10,000, and you need to be able to book a hotel, and you have to, all this stuff that people make up. Then you look around, you find people go backpacking and they go to Thailand for $500, right? So we make up these stories, and then we believe they're true, and then we operate as though they are true, and then and those same stories keep us from doing and getting and having the outcome that we want, because we can't do those things. We can't create those paths. Some of them don't even fit us. They're not for us to do. So I get excited about this because I've spent a lot of time traveling, and I see people who save their whole lives so they can go somewhere when they're 60 or 70 or 80. I've been traveling since I was 20, right? Going abroad 20, 30. My son is in Brazil right now. So it's not like you need to have the part of the alchemy of success is realizing that a lot of what we're holding on to is not going to help us be successful, i.e., not expressing ourselves, not being, not feeling what we need to feel, is not going to help us get to where we want to go. It's just the opposite way around. So, another from our audience. Let's see what else our audience has for this. So, who else has a comment or a yeah, but, or, a perspective that they want to share, that you want to share with us? Go ahead, Jason. If there's anything else there. Okay, well, it looks like they're. I don't know about the do they. I'm not sure what that's referring to, but the condition is real. I'm just reading it. Rise above your limited beliefs in our childhood environment and society. Okay, so I have this question is for you, I think, Melissa. So, how do you rise above your culture? How do you rise above? It's. I've heard it say said, for example, that we're like fish. A fish that in water doesn't know it's in water. It looks out and this is like, well, this is the way things are. So how do we rise above all of this conditioning, all of what we've learned in school, all of what our parents taught us, all of what the church has taught us, all of what our relatives have taught us, and it goes on. How does one extricate oneself from the condition of that we're in?
Interesting question. So I think there's a couple of answers there. How do we rise above everything? It's basically by letting everything go and dissipate. And sometimes that means the people that we thought were our family, the friends that we thought were our friends, the circle that we thought was our circle. The only way to rise above everything is literally to be open to focusing so deeply on yourself that at the end of the day that whomever and whatever is supposed to be there will be there at the end of the day, and you let go of everything that is external. So the second part of that, I would say, would be, how do we define success? So there's so much. So even you asking me for a bio, I'm like, yeah, but does all of those things define success for me? For all the work experience, everything that I have done, and it's not you, this is me, right? How does that define success? And the only thing that I can pull from all of that is that that's literally where my education came from, in the experiential knowledge. So as long as I know that I have the experiential knowledge, and I don't have to know what the next step is at every single turn, I trust deeply that I'll know when I'm supposed to know. In order to rise above it, it may include letting everything go.
Yes, well, that's what we want to press in a little bit on. So, this business of trust, right? So, if you have had, as many of us have had, failures, you failed, right? In something we've tried to take on, and we didn't get into the school we wanted to go to, or, we didn't get the mate that we wanted to have, or we got the mate and then we lost the mate, all of those things, or we didn't get the contract, I mean, it goes on and on. So we fail. So it's you after failing the for some people it's like, well, I guess I didn't really know what I was doing, or I can you can go to I wasn't good enough, I didn't know what I was doing, it's not for me. We know the whole litany of things that we say about ourselves. But this trust business. So how do you develop trust in yourself? What's the source of trusting yourself? Because you said, well, I trust in myself that it'll turn out okay. I don't know if that's available to a lot of people that they trust themselves. So what's the source of trust?
Well, I think failure's perspective to begin with. So, like, is anything or any of those job experiences or any of the times that I resigned from wherever, is that failure on my part? Well, if you were to look at another perspective from somebody else that was saying what happened, it could be failure, but it could also be um, that I wasn't in integrity with a lot of the things that were happening. So, from an internal standpoint, if I felt like I needed to move forward or I needed to resign, I had that trust in me that I knew that that was the next step along my path. So, how does somebody get there? I think that basically it starts with understanding that you're going to be called to make some big decisions. And those big decisions are going to be what launches you into your next quantum jump if you have enough trust that that's what's happening and you act in integrity with who you are at a core level, a fundamental level.
Well, we have to stay with this a little longer. So, obviously, I'm not satisfied yet, so we're gonna stay with it a little
Keep
longer.
going.
So I got it that having the trust in your possibility, if you would,
Mhm,
uh, will keep you in the game. I got that part.
mhm.
But I was addressing the part where you take actions and they don't produce the result that you want. How do you, in that case, in that situation, how do you maintain the trust, which I would say maybe somehow impaired or maybe even broken or have disappeared because of the failure? You're going along, everything seems to be great, Humpty Dumpty, all of that, and then you fall off the wall, right? It's like, well, maybe I wasn't, shouldn't have been on that wall, like that.
We've been
But
on
so
that wall. So
that's,
how do we, yeah, yeah, how do we bring ourselves back into alignment?
yes.
Yeah, so how do we bring ourselves back into alignment? Well, for one, we have to understand who we are in those moments. So even if it's the acknowledgement of, okay, I did these certain things and I shouldn't have done these certain things, but so that we know from those lessons that are learned, from those life experiences, that we can put them in our tool belt, right? So it doesn't turn out. Is it the end of the world? Like, why didn't it turn out? Is it external gratification that I was looking for? Is it monetary? What is it? What is the reason? What is the core or fundamental belief, the limited belief behind why it didn't work out? Why is this pattern not working out again? Like, for example, in business, I've been in business with, and I've always had a partnership with everyone else until recently, until January of this year. I decided that, oh, I get to be by myself in business for a minute. I get to explore this foundation. Like, I don't have to have all of these things, but that ended a pattern for me. So, what are the patterns to look at when those things happen? There's always a pattern, and those patterns typically play out through our life and don't change until we consciously change them. Until
Yeah,
we,
this is good. This is helpful. So while you were speaking, I was thinking of this idea of who we constitute ourselves to be. So we could say that, you can start off with, I am a success, right? And this happened, and which was a failure, but it doesn't take away the fact that I'm successful. What I am innately, inherently is successful. So sometimes people who are on the more spiritual path will say, well, it doesn't take away the fact that I am a son of God, right? And so I have all of those abilities, and maybe this particular thing didn't go the way I wanted to, but that doesn't say anything about who I am essentially. Essentially, I'm able, I'm intelligent, I'm worthy, I'm successful, and this thing happened, which maybe is part of, like as you said earlier, part of how I get to the success that I want. It's like a stepping stone to my success rather than labeling it, as you would say, a failure. Maybe it wasn't at all. It was just a learning experience. What is it that I can get from this so I can keep moving forward? So I got it about staying, the trust is in who you say or believe that you are. You're trusting in that rather than trusting in I'm not good enough or I'm not strong enough or I'm not able enough. Are we?
Yeah,
Are
yeah,
we
and digging out when we think those things like we aren't good enough or maybe I'm not worthy enough, really coming back into presence and understanding that we are worthy as we are. So it really is bringing it all back to presence, and we are worthy as we are. I am loved as I am. We are loved as individuals as we are. Bringing it back to presence that regardless of what success, the word is just like what success looks like. We are worthy as we are, regardless of the outcome. I mean, a lot of spiritual awakenings happen because we fail or because we're launched into something else. What is our experience of that? I mean, we can go deeper as far as success goes all day long, I feel like. So it really is what the human mind tries to tell us that success should look like, which really the only success is internal.
and we're going to take another break. So let's do a commercial break again, and we'll come back and we'll have a few more comments before we wrap up tonight.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Leslie. Many of us have dreams in our hearts that we have not been able to realize, but we really want to have that thing. So I created a course called The Alchemy of Success, How to Get What You Really Want Out of Life. It's a 21-day course in which you'll do three things. First, you'll get in touch again with that thing that really inspires you, the thing that you really want to have happen for you. Secondly, we'll get the obstacles out of the way so you can move expeditiously towards achieving it. And then finally, we create a solid plan, a roadmap that will get you from where you are now to the achievement of your dream. That's called The Alchemy of Success, How to Get What You Really Want Out of Life. The course is $299, but if you enroll this week, you can have it for $199, the 21-day course and the fulfillment of your heart's desire. I look forward to seeing you there. How did you do it? You just go to drmichaelleslie.com, you send me a note, say, I want to be in the course. I'll put you in the course and we'll start working together right away. I look forward to seeing you there.
Great. So we're going to take some questions or comments from our audience again. So go ahead, Jason, put them up, and we'll hear what people want to know. Well, Mark, I think this is for you, Melissa. What lessons have you learned from failure? I don't know if that question is for you or for me, but you get to go first.
Well, I don't know that we have enough time to answer
Give,
that question.
give them one. Give them one. I'll give them one. How's that?
Yeah. So, what lessons have I learned? That it's never the other person; it's always me.
Whoa. Oh, that's well. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can top that one. Never the other person. It's always me. That's that's great. I think I used to know that answer. Lately,
That's the right answer. That's the one that came to me, though.
well, what I've learned is that uh, all the things that I did not succeed at were pointing me to where I'm succeeding now. So, to give a concrete, I never became one of these, uh, full time. Well, I was full time. I never became one of these distinguished intellectual giants. I don't know if I ever really aspired to that, but I certainly didn't become it. It didn't. I didn't even feel it. It wasn't like it was really any fun. But I always liked this part, feeling to do that allowed me to do this. Right, I can be more present with people and have a lot more fun. So that's an answer to the question of uh, of our well, one of our listeners. What else we have here? Everything happens when it's supposed to happen, not when you want it, but when it's needed. What do you see there, Melissa?
So, I think as we allow it to unfold instead of forcing it. And that's with everything, relationships, business, or whatever, as we are being, if you want to call it that, and coming back to presence, then all of that kind of goes away. Whatever is supposed to happen has already happened, and it happens for me. It happens for us as individuals.
Yeah, say that again. Whatever was supposed to happen has already happened.
Whatever is supposed to happen has already happened. So it brings me right back to presence, and I don't have to look outside of myself. So whatever has already happened it's happened for me already.
Got it. Got
It's
it.
all trust as well.
Yeah, I think I've got that. I'm just wondering if I had anything to add to that. Um, no, I don't. Go next. If we don't change suffering, then yes, it is a choice. Yeah. You said something about this earlier, Melissa. Some people really don't want to get out of what they're in. They're actually, what do we call it? They are sold on being in whatever state they're in, even if it's miserable, right? And so I had a conversation with someone the other day. It's not my phrase. It's a quote that I read, and it's from a Roman philosopher. It's he who cannot be counseled cannot be helped. And in the Spanish version of that is sufres porque quieres. So you there's always a way to end suffering if you want to end suffering, but most people or many people like to wallow in their suffering and tell other people about how much they're suffering and yeah. So I got that piece. Was there anything there for you, Melissa?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Go with the flow and adjust yourself accordingly. Oh, she liked that you said that. Okay. Warner Urquhart, who's one of my mentors, he said, water, when it goes down a river, right? And if you're in the river with the water and you resist the flow of the water, you're going to be inserted into a rock. But if you go with the flow of the river doesn't go into the rocks, it goes around the rocks, right? So, I always remember that. You can choose to be inserted into the rock or you can flow around the rock. Thank you very much for that, listener. What else you got, Jason? What's that hum about, Melissa?
There are some benefits of suffering. You get attention from others. That's interesting. So I would say that yes, when someone is stuck or trapped inside of the mind, then the behaviors that do come out that are typically ancestral behaviors would lead to us wanting that attention. But really, the only thing that people want is to be witnessed as they are. They want to be seen and they want to be heard. And so, is the attention actually attention, or is it just them wanting to be witnessed as they are? Is what I would ask.
Yeah, I had a slightly different take on that. I hope it's complimentary. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking that this attention seeking is a call for help. You see, that
Mm-hmm.
people are wanting to say something. You would might, or as you would put it, maybe a little more philosophically, there's something in them that wants to be out, right? That wants to be heard, and that's the only, and they don't know how to get that out or get that heard, so they're using some other mechanism to get people to pay attention to them, right? Interact with them and hoping that if this person interacts with them, they'll actually get to what they really want to talk about and say. It reminds me of another thing. There's some people, when they keep repeating the same thing over and over again when you're talking to them, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like you get the impression that first I used to get the impression that, well, they're not listening. But then I got to think that they don't feel they've been heard by me. Whatever they're trying to say, they're clear that I haven't heard what that is. And that's why they're repeating it over and over again. Kind of get me to wake up, like, wake up, I'm trying to tell you something, like that.
Yeah.
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 Good, good. Okay, so this is a little different. The question, it says, what's the general purpose of self-attention?
The self-attention, is it vanity? What are we referring to when we're referring to, so that we have the distinction of self-attention, or is it us seeking the validation of the attention? So self-attention can be interpreted in many different ways. If we're talking about authentic self, I don't think it really relates to attention and what we're asking to have attention be drawn to. So I don't know.
I'm going to ask you to repeat that one more time.
Yeah, so I think that if we're talking about self-attention, what are we referring to in the distinction? Like self-attention, if I'm seeking self-attention, is it vanity wise? Typically it's related to something, I would say, vanity wise, if I had to go from like just an interpretation of self-attention.
Mhm.
Or is it self-attention because I'm suffering so much that I want the attention, or I need the help, like you said, like a cry for help from someone?
Mhm. Yeah, I got that. Yeah, yeah. Um, Good. Well, that answers that question. So we have, I guess we have time for one more. Because we harness the power of self, we harness the power over the reactions of what occurs around us. So this is the discovery of the evening, I think, for me at least. When you're Because you mentioned this self, this powerful self that resides within, that's wanting, that's really the essence, if you would, that wants to come out and play. Talk about that self a little bit, so we're kind of intrigued about this, that internal discovery.
Hmm. Well, I would say that it's different for every individual, but when it begins to happen, it literally is such an innate process of witnessing ourself as an observer, from the 50,000 foot view, that we can literally, and Eckhart Tolle says, this as well in chapter 2, The Power of Now, we can literally turn it on ourselves and just watch ourselves and observe ourselves and the growth within ourselves. So as that authentic self begins to come out of us, it's a stage by stage blossoming. It's a stage by stage rebirth. It's a stage by stage. We don't really have to know what's next. All we have to know is that we have that trust in whatever is next is exactly what the authentic expression of myself is being called to do.
Well, I'm going to end this, Melissa, on something that just sprung to my heart because of what you just said about observing ourselves. And it's a song that I learned when I was in Unity, uh, one of the traditions, the Christian traditions. And it goes like this. Um, it's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can know everything without ever knowing why. It's in every one of us here and now. So, on that note, thank you so much, Melissa Cauley, transformation expert, master business innovation, entrepreneur, seeker, and guide to our inner selves that can lead us to a greater experience of who we actually are. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Michael, for having me and for such a lovely conversation. So,
And how do people find you?
I'm all over the web. So, Melissa at scorpionalchemia.com. That's
Great.
that.
And I what we'll do, well, this is recorded, so you can also find the card that was put up just a few minutes ago. And if in doubt, if you can't find Melissa, she says she's on all over the web. So if you can't find her, get in touch with me. I'll send you, her contact information also. Okay. Okay, so this is a wrap for our podcast, our second. Uh, the alchemy of success. What does it take to have success? Whatever you call that thing called success. And the next week we'll be here again. We'll have another excellent speaker talking to us about success in business. His name is Bob, and he'll be with us tomorrow. I'm sorry, Tuesday, 8 days or 7 days from now. Melissa, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And good night to all of you. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Thanks, Dr. Michael.
My pleasure.
Thank you for watching the Alchemy of Success podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week.